let's get to it.
My laptop not there. Okay. Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. Welcome to the next installment of Civil Disagreement. Today's topic is the Second Amendment and gun rights. We're sitting here in the state of Virginia, which is actually, it seems to be the test bed for the rest of the country right now, with all kinds of gun legislation being passed around. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit. But my name is Kevin Beers. I'm the host of Civil Disagreement. This is my co-host, Michael Green. And actually, I'm going to let him start it off.
I guess the big conversation with a lot of this stuff is me personally. I'm pro Second Amendment. Believe it or not, I do come from like I said before, I come from a pretty conservative family, and a lot of people in my family, my elders, don't believe in having a gun in the home and don't believe in guns. Okay, but then you have myself and some of my cousins and other younger family members who were in the military, and some of them are part of law enforcement. So they are part of gun culture and don't have a problem with weapons in the home or being around weapons. So as far as I am concerned, my opinion is I don't think there should be this thing, this extreme thing that the government needs to ban weapons. And school shootings are a tragedy. They're horrific. No parent should go through that. In saying that, I don't think there's a end all be all to gun legislation where if we just ban all weapons or ban what we consider to be an assault weapon, that's going to solve those problems. And the reason I believe that is because there's just so many guns in this country. There's just so many easy access to guns right now that you can ban what you want, but the guns are still there. If somebody wants a gun, they can get it. It's just that simple. So no governmental ban on any one weapon or all weapons is going to stop that. If somebody really wants to harm somebody, they're going to find a way to do it. Whether they make their own weapon or IED or whatever they do, or whether they get their hands on an illegal gun and do it. So I think what we have to do is come up with common sense, I guess, laws or regulations that will promote a positive gun culture, so to speak, because there are people that's just scared of guns just to be scared of guns. They have no idea how to register for a gun or what a carry concealed is or how guns work. They've never shot a gun. They just believe that just guns are bad, period. They don't want to talk about it, nothing. They just want to ban them. And that's their right, but they can think what they want. But at the end of the day, we still need to come up with some kind of common sense regulation, whether it be with the rules that's already in place or whether we need to make addendums to the rules that's in place locally or federally to make that happen.
And for me, I personally am pro Second Amendment. However, I don't see a need for as many restrictions as what Mike may see. We actually started the discussion before we turned the cameras on. And I wanted to say it got heated. It didn't get heated. We were both very passionate about our positions on this.
Yeah. Go with your Thomas Jefferson quote.
Okay, so first thing we did was we actually looked at the Second Amendment. I mean, that's actually a really good place to start if we were talking about gun rights and gun control and things like that. And two of the quotes of Thomas Jefferson, the guy who wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
The first one he says is, and this is him in a letter to James Madison on December 20th, 1787. He says, "What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms." So basically, he's saying the people need to be armed to remind the government that, they're not truly in charge. The people are actually in charge.
Yes.
They are there as servants, not as the bosses. The second one here, this is in his Commonplace book. And he's actually quoting from an 18th century criminologist. It's Cesare Beccaria, I believe. Actually, the Commonplace book, I did some research on that. That was actually, Thomas Jefferson thought hey, these things are really good ideas for governing or for living life in general. And he kept this book, and this is one of the quotes he puts in there. The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature. They disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man, which is actually one of the arguments against banning guns and gun-free zones. Gun-free zones, I've read stats in both directions. I don't exactly know where it really falls. My feeling would be if it's a gun-free zone, it's much more likely that someone with a gun is going to walk in and do something. If it's, we actually see that through the 90s, where when gun laws became more liberal, meaning that gun permits, concealed carry, things like that, were pushed as a, it was, people were freer to do those things. The rates of gun violence actually went down. So, and I think that's exactly what it's talking about here. If you're not armed, if someone well, in Texas, there's far less crime in areas where it's known like everybody has a gun.
Yes.
There's far less crime because if you're going to commit a crime, you're taking your own life in your hands at that point.
Well, and that's debatable as far as my culture, because the whole, and I hate to bring up the whole, black on black crime, which I think is a myth, but the statistics in a lot of poor neighborhoods, regardless if it's black or white, you have a lot of that armed robbery crime, and that is because a lot of people think that either carrying a gun is bad for some reason, or it invites trouble or things of that nature. But when you go into certain communities where everybody is just known to be armed or have a carry concealed, you don't see a lot of that. And it has nothing to do with economics as far as armed robbery is concerned. I mean, let's just say we had a law where as soon as you turn 18, you get a 9mm. Okay, and I know some people are going to go to my page and say that's rhetoric and that's ridiculous and why would you think that's okay? But let's just go there real quick. Let's say we were like, was it Switzerland or Norway? One of those countries. I have to look it up later. But one of those countries in Europe, when you turn 18, you're eligible to register for your own 9mm. Okay, your own weapon. Okay, you have to think, if I was a dude and I was a predator, and my thing is, I know on Thursdays and Friday nights, those guys getting off from their jobs at McDonald's or the shipyard or wherever we live at, they paid. And I'm going to go out there with my little gun and I'm going to rob me some people. If it's known that most of the people in your neighborhood are going to be carrying, you're not going to be doing that because you don't want to get shot. I mean, that's just common sense. I'm not going to go out there and try to rob somebody with a pipe, knife, gun, whatever. And I know it's a fact that most of those people in that neighborhood carry. I'm not. So, I mean, you got to think about that. So, I'm not trying to, say, I mean, that again, that's just my opinion. I'm not going to demonize weapons because I just don't. It's all about what's behind it, which is the human being. And this is my example. Man takes a 30-06. It's registered. He is a law-abiding citizen, and he goes and gets his permits. He buys his 30-06, and he takes his son out there to the woods, and he shows him how to shoot deer. That is a hunting rifle. Okay, said man for some reason goes crazy later on, and he takes the same 30-06, and he goes and sits on top of a building and shoots his supervisor coming out of work because he just lost his job. That is no longer a hunting rifle. It's an assault rifle, or even better in the military, that's a sniper rifle. Okay. So at the end of the day, what laws were you going to put in place to stop that man from doing that? Nothing. I mean, there's nothing you would have did to stop that. That's that old man's responsibility. That's all on him. That's all on him. He was a law-abiding citizen. There was nothing in play to stop that from happening. He just felt a certain type of way, and that's what he did, and that's his fault and his responsibility. What do you got to say about that, Kevin?
No, I totally agree. I
Yeah.
mean, there's we can't know who is going to actually commit the gun violence,
Mm-hmm.
but the percentage, when you look at the percentage of those that commit gun violence,
Mm-hmm.
the percent it's like a point zero something. Yeah, it is so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what culture, no matter what the population, it really doesn't matter. It just doesn't happen on the frequency. Now,
Yeah.
we do know that there is a lot of gun violence in cities where a lot of people are packed in together.
Yeah.
We know a lot of things about areas where people are packed in together. There's a lot more physical violence only because that close proximity.
Proximity. I mean, you
human beings need space.
space, yes, but it's not just that. You are going to rob and assault what you live around. Nobody is waking up in the morning that is, as we like to say, about that life. If you're a person that robs people for their personal belongings, if you're a burglar, whatever, nobody is waking up getting ready to travel 50 miles outside of their way from the hood or whatever project or whatever trailer park or wherever you live that's considered low income. Wherever you live at, nobody is waking up trying to get 50 miles outside their way so they can get around rich people and say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna rob people out here." Like it. No, that's not the mindset.
As a matter of fact, that is interesting. Poor people who live in poor areas
Yes,
don't rob rich people.
it's exactly.
They rob other poor
They
people.
rob other poor people. You're gonna take from what you're around. I mean that's just the way that is. Okay, so and it's not racial. It's not. It has nothing to do with somebody's religious views or anything like that. It's just whatever you're around, and you feel like your survival depends on you taking from somebody else. You're gonna take from what's around you. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening where me and Kevin kind of disagree on this, and again, I just want to read the Second Amendment right here, and it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. I totally agree with that whole entire Second Amendment. Okay. Now, again, go ahead and break that down, Kevin, as far as Second Amendment is concerned. Like who's the militia? What are they talking about when
Okay,
they,
so
yeah.
this is a quote from George Mason. This is an address to the Virginia Ratifying Convention, June 4th, 1788. I guess this is when the Bill of Rights is actually being discussed, and they're in the process of ratifying the Bill of Rights. He says, "I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people except a few public officers." Basically, everybody.
Yes.
Everybody's the militia. So I hear arguments all the time like, well, this is only for the military.
No, it's not.
You know, and right here, George Mason in his address, he's saying, no, the militia is everybody. Everybody needs to take a part in national, well, it's not, it doesn't say national defense, but the entire population needs to be armed, is what he's saying.
Now, again, I reiterate, there are going to be some people that's triggered, and there are some people out there that like to demonize weapons, and I get that, but I say to you, at the end of the day, a weapon is only going to do what the person behind yielding it is doing. And just like depression or anything like that, there is no rule that you can put in place to stop somebody that's all of a sudden going to do something negative with a weapon, even though they are a law-abiding citizen, to stop them from doing something illegal with it. I mean, it's driving is a privilege. It's not even a right. But look how many laws we have for it. Like you're not, until you start talking about DUIs, you're really not worried about somebody killing somebody with a vehicle. That's not the major issue here. But we have all these different type of licensings for this privilege, for this responsible privilege. If I go get my license right now, I'm 21 years old. I just got my driver's license. And I'm happy. Woohoo! I got my driver's license. I can't drive a truck. I can't drive a motorcycle. I can't drive a big rig.
Can't drive a bus.
I can't drive a bus. I can't drive a forklift. I can't drive heavy machinery at a construction site. There's so much stuff I can't do with that driver's license. You know what I can drive? Passenger vehicles, SUVs, pickup trucks. That's it.
Okay, well, I would say that privileges would come with more laws.
Yes.
Rights, I would say, come with less laws.
But then you have to look at the responsibility of the right. Again, I understand that that's a privilege, but yet you wrote all that stuff into there. For what reason did you write all those regulations into driving for when they don't have any you're not going to tell me, oh, well, we divided the motorcycle and the passenger car license because we're worried about you killing other people with a motorcycle. No, that's not what you're worried about. Now, you can come from a public safety standpoint and say, well, we're worried about you knowing that you could drive a motorcycle, and for you to have that, you have to take this separate test because we want to make sure you don't kill yourself. Okay, I can even handle that. But what does that have to do with other people? CDL license. Why did you put that in play? Now that, granted, we don't want you out here driving trucks without being properly trained because you're going to go out here and start what? Killing other people. Again, I don't think it has to do with privilege, much less public safety. Who are you worrying about affecting in the public when you give these people access to machinery or equipment that could hurt other people? So if we have the right to bear arms and you giving people access to stuff that could literally, like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're not talking about the possibility of hurting somebody. You giving people access to something that can kill somebody and that will kill somebody if they want to. And you don't think you should have some kind of restriction on that to a point?
Well, we'll see. Okay, so I guess this actually enters into the idea of what kind of restrictions should
we have? Yes.
For instance, I'm in favor of a waiting period. The reason for that, I've suffered with depression my whole life. Okay, so I understand there are times when you're depressed, if you want to take your own life, you want to do it right now. Because if you have if you just need a few days in some cases where after those few days go by, you're not feeling like you want to take your life anymore. So a waiting period on buying a gun would make sense to me. Now, when it comes down to people with mental illnesses.
Yes.
I'm diagnosed with a mental illness. It's in connection to the depression, but there's more to it than that. And the part of the problem is my diagnosis. Well, let me just preface all this. Mike and I talked about the fact that neither one of us has a gun license. That maybe we should go get one before we actually talk about this. But because of what's going on in Virginia right now with all the bills flying around, we felt it was better that we get it out there sooner.
Yes.
But the thing is, because I have an actual diagnosis of a mental illness, it's possible I will not be able to get one, even though I am absolutely no danger to anybody.
And my thing is that, again, everybody's looking at that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're gonna stipulate that if you're on a class 1 narcotic / what is that? Oh wow, I lost the word. Like if you're on Prozac, you can't buy a gun.
Well, Prozac's. I was on an antipsychotic.
Yeah, if you're on an antipsychotic, you can't buy a gun. What are they going to do? Make a registry, and then they're going to go into some kind of medical registry, put your name in there. Oh, current prescription from Doctor Such and Such for antipsychotic, blah blah blah. I'm sorry, sir, you can't have a license.
But the thing is, if I'm on this antipsychotic, I probably have my mental illness under control.
It doesn't matter though, because you got to.
So, and now this actually we'll talk about this at some other time. But people with mental illnesses, a lot of them don't seek treatment because once you do seek treatment, you can lose certain rights.
And that's my thing. So what are you going to put in place? Because if you check this database of people that have mental illness, obviously they're being seen and they're in check. So now you're going to use this database to unlawfully or take the rights of people away who are being law-abiding citizens. Hey, Kevin Beers, we see you're in this database for whatever, schizophrenia or whatever. I'm sorry, sir. You can't own a weapon. Like, are you serious? The man is a law-abiding citizen and doing what he needs to do to make himself good and well and to keep being a productive citizen in America. But because he's in this database for that, he can't have a gun?
I would be accepting of the idea that, okay, I show up in the database.
Yeah.
Now you're going to go check with my doctor. What's my doctor got to say? If my doctor says, hey, he'll take somebody out if he gets that gun, yeah, don't give me the gun.
Yeah, but that's already going to be possibly in the deal. That's, I mean, because you got to think, if they're going to come up with that, then they're going to come up with something that goes with your treatment that says, okay, Mr. Beers, I want you to understand that you're seeing me for treatment. I understand you came in, blah, 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 but I'm going to have to put you in this database and annotate that you don't have a right to own a weapon. Do you understand that? And then you're going to have to sign some piece of paper. Is that going to piss you off? Are you going to storm out? What? I can't own my weapon. What if you already own a weapon?
Right.
So now you're pissed off because this doctor has to register you a certain way, just like being a sex offender or anything else. Okay. And the next thing you know, you go and get your weapon and go on some kind of whatever because you're pissed off because you can't own your weapon.
And the
thing
is, as long as I'm not diagnosed, I can get a weapon.
Exactly.
But once I'm diagnosed, now I'm under treatment. So actually, and for me particularly, once I was on the medication, all my symptoms disappeared. So now I'm the perfect guy to own a gun now.
But somebody's going to argue, well, what if you don't take your medication and you go crazy? Look, all I'm saying is,
well, the thing is, I will say,
because that's thought police stuff.
If I really wanted to hurt somebody,
yeah,
there is nothing I will find a way.
Exactly, which is what I was saying earlier. There is no law you're going to put in place to just eliminate a certain sector of crime. It's just not going to happen.
Right. If there's a waiting period for me, and I'm like, you know what, I want to take my life now. You're
going to say,
okay, maybe I can't use a gun because I can't get one.
Yeah.
I can get drugs. That's real easy to get.
Yes.
I can hang myself. I'm not endorsing anything.
Yeah,
here.
We're not endorsing suicide. This is just examples.
But what I'm saying is, if I really want to do it, I'm going to. I'm going to figure out a way. Because of the things I've gone through. I got a lot of friends who have tried to commit suicide. But they found other ways. They did not have they may not have access to a gun.
Yeah.
So they went some other way. I actually went, I don't want to go into that, but in my early 20s, I did think about it, and I had a hunting rifle or a hunting shotgun, and I was going to do it.
And I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm but I just want to say that the numbers show, as far as gun culture is concerned, like kids being indoctrinated into hunting and just certain weapons, even bow hunting. Like, you don't see great numbers of these young kids getting mad, going to go get their rifle and going to go shoot somebody. Like you like when you, and this is what I mean by this. I looked at a video of, and we'll put a snippet up of that. But I looked at a video of this young girl. She had to be maybe around 9 or 8. She was in a competition. Basically, they go through a course and they shoot shotguns and semi-automatic handguns. Okay, and they have to go through these courses as fast as they can and shoot as many targets as they can, get as many bullseyes as they can, as quick as they can. And that's the whole competition. And I'm watching these kids handle these weapons like it's part of their arm, like they were born to do this. And me personally, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see anything wrong with the 12-year-old taking a rifle and learning how to hunt deer with that. I just don't see anything wrong with it, because at the end of the day, it is very productive. Like somebody, well, what are you teaching your kids? Well, you're not teaching them to be violent. You're just teaching them to be efficient with weapons and how to respect weapons. And you're telling them what to, this is how you respect a weapon and this is what it's used for. And they're being responsible, and that's what they're doing. But nobody's teaching these kids, oh, this weapon is for when you get mad at Johnny down the street and he doesn't do what you want him to do, you take this weapon and go to school and just kill everybody. That is not in gun culture. Nobody is teaching their kids to do this stuff.
Okay, and speaking of gun culture and kids, an interesting study. There's actually a video on YouTube about this. I got a chance to see, and maybe if we can find it, we can put something in there. They put an actual gun, in a couch, and they let a bunch of kids in. I don't know their ages. I think they were all under the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they found the gun. I mean, that was the whole purpose.
Yeah.
They're going to find the gun. The parents are actually behind a two-way mirror kind of thing, and they're watching what's going on. The kids who grew up in homes where guns were accessible
Yes.
refused to touch the gun because they knew they were brought up to respect that weapon. The guns are in the house. You do not touch them. Now, the kids that grew up in homes where there were no guns,
or taught that guns were bad.
They were fascinated by, no, actually, that had nothing to do with it.
Oh,
it was
okay.
just the fact that
they just weren't taught any culture.
They were not taught anything about guns, essentially.
Okay.
They played with the gun. They pointed it at each other. They did everything you do with a gun that you see on TV. But the kids who grew up around guns refused to touch it because they knew that, and they're like, "Who can we?" They want to tell adults.
Adults, yes.
Makes
sense. Makes perfect sense.
And I grew up in a household with guns. We knew, like, until you hit the age of 12, you can't even touch that gun. We learned to respect it. We didn't fear the gun, but we did respect it. Now, if you see someone, well, I grew up in an area where people just weren't shifty, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you see someone who is carrying a weapon, be on alert, but don't fear it. Just respect the fact, keep your eye on it, keep your alert up. Just respect the fact that guns are a dangerous thing, or they can be a very dangerous thing. But I learned how to handle guns from an early age, went through the hunter safety. Actually, that would be a gun law I would, actually, I think you said in Virginia we have that, where, okay, if you're going to buy a gun, this is your first purchase, you got to have some kind of gun safety course in your background.
Yeah.
You got to have it just so you know how to handle the weapon.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I don't know how enforceable that would be, but at the same time, I don't think some real value in it.
I don't think that's in the background check. I think once, because my son carries, he got to carry to conceal. I'm not going to say which son, but and he can open carry also. So it was nothing for him to have his weapon displayed. And what I found funny, again, it just goes to culture, the kids that would, or not the kids, I say kids because it's my son. The young men that were his age that saw him open carry were like amazed by it. Like, are you a cop? And he's like, no. He's like, oh my God, how you get to carry that weapon? Again, it's like, how do you not know? How do you not know that you can open carry a weapon in the state of Virginia like that? Like, how do you not know? Like, and again, it just goes back to demonizing weapons for a certain point of view, and you're just not doing it. I think, my opinion, you don't do anybody any favors with that. Now, if you want to raise your house and you want to, if you don't want weapons in your house, and that is your right, that's your opinion. It's America. You can believe what you want. It's nothing wrong with that. I'm not demonizing that point. I'm just saying that if you come back into the public arena and you don't know anything about weapons other than you want to say that they're bad, how can you bring anything to the conversation if you don't know anything about guns? You just want to ban them all, but you know nothing about them.
I've actually met very few people who have never, who have fired a weapon, who are actually against guns.
Yes.
I mean, typically what I run into is people who say, I think we should have no weapons at all. Have never actually shot a weapon.
That's what I'm saying.
Actually, most of them will admit that they never actually touched a weapon.
Yeah.
So how do you even have a real
opinion on it? That's what I mean.
You can have an opinion, but what's it based on? I mean, I like I said, I grew up around guns. I've shot shotguns and rifles. I finally shot a handgun just a few years ago for the first time. I never had a handgun before. I knew what the first thing I did was the range I went to. I had the guy who dispenses the targets and stuff like that. He just ran me through a quick safety kind of thing. I gave my background where what I was there for. The person I was with has been shooting handgun his whole life, so wasn't worried about him. I just asked for, what do I need to know? That's all I wanted to know. I'm just here to shoot the gun for the first time. What do I need to know? And it's just very
And most places where you can go to shoot your weapons or purchase weapons, most of those places do have classes, weapons classes, where you can learn everything from how to operate the weapon, how to disassemble it and clean it, maintenance, everything. Like, you'd be surprised. Like, it's just not, oh, we're selling guns and we're selling guns and we're selling guns, and that's it. Like, you can walk into a lot of places in Virginia and you can say, hey, I really would like a weapon for my home for security, and I would like to purchase this type of weapon, but I have no gun culture. I don't know anything about it. And they will literally pull you off to the side, sign you up for a class, usually that day, and they will put you in a room and they will show you literally with one of their rental weapons or whatever. They will literally show you how to operate, hold, fire, disassemble, clean, maintain, store. You see what I'm saying? Like, they'll even take it so far as, do you have children in your home? Yes, I do. Okay, we have these products to stop your children from getting into your your weapon. Right. It's out there. It is out there. All you have to do is ask. But to get back to the whole Second Amendment point that I read, where we disagree is the controls that I think that we should start enforcing. I think the controls should be a little bit more common sense. Kevin disagrees with some of the controls because it's a right versus a privilege and some other things. But I just think it's common sense. Like, case in point, love collectors. I love running into people that say they're collectors, especially these people that like to do the whole reenactments during the Civil War and way back during the westward expansion and all kind of other stuff. And they have weapons from those periods. People that are gun collectors and they have a weapon from like literally every culture in the world. They'll have like a handgun or a fully automatic weapon from Germany from World War whatever.
There's only two to pick from.
Yeah, that's so. But they'll have like a Japanese model, and like I said, I love collectors. I love the enthusiasm about it. It's real good information and history behind weapons and learning how they're built and what advancements they made until the weapons that we have now. But those are very law-abiding citizens, and if you take any law-abiding citizen that has a passion, they are willing to jump through any hoops that they have to, as long as they get to do their passion. So if you add a certain type of licensing that only collectors can get, so they can own 350 different types of weapons that go from the very first time a gun was ever created all the way up to 2000 whatever, they're going to get that license. They might hate it. They might hate the fact that they got to get this license now, but they're going to get it. They're going to get it, and then they're going to display it proudly. Yeah, I'm a gun collector. Look, I got this license. And they're going to keep collecting guns. What that does is that discourages, or that keeps the insane rhetoric of people that don't have common sense from just buying a whole bunch of guns just because they want to, because there's no common sense reason to do that. And this is the example that I mean by that. It is your right to bear arms. If you have 5 weapons in your house, a shotgun, an AR-15, a 9mm, a 40 sub, and a 357, you got 5 weapons in your house. You are bearing arms. Nobody is taking that away from you. My question is, what does that guy have in common with the guy that's got a room and he's got 150 AR-15s in it? How is that the same thing? Reasonably, as a reasonable thinking person, a human being, a responsible adult, how is the guy with 5 weapons doing the same thing that the guy with 150 AR-15s is doing?
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yes.
What if I have 5 AR-15s? Is that number too high?
I'm not saying the number of weapons is too high. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, if you want it to be 5 weapons of 5 of the same weapon, that's fine. What I'm saying is it still should be a limit on those weapons. What I'm saying is the right.
What I'm asking is,
yeah,
where's the number? I mean,
The number has to be what any reasonable thinking person would think you need to defend or to have the right to bear arms.
Okay,
and this is what I mean by that.
How do you define reasonable thinking?
Okay, I don't know. That's not a term that I came up with.
Okay.
It's literally written in a lot of local laws in this country.
For me, the fact that we have the right versus the privilege.
Yes.
That's where my problem comes in.
Yes.
We have the right to bear arms, which means
it can't be infringed upon. It doesn't say that you have a right to 350 weapons. But there's no numerical value in the Second Amendment.
There is no numerical value because to me there is no numerical value to be assigned. So if you say you can own 5, but you can't own 10, you just infringe. You didn't infringe on the right to bear arms necessarily or technically.
Yes.
But you are infringing on my right to bear arms the way I want to bear arms.
It doesn't say that the government can't do that. It just says technically the government cannot infringe upon your right to bear arms. And literally, we cannot stop you from buying weapons. But it didn't say that we couldn't stop you from buying weapons after you bought weapons. It doesn't say that. It just says we can't stop you from buying weapons, period. Meaning that you have the right to bear. So in other words, if we say you can only buy 5 weapons, we didn't infringe upon your rights. You do have the right to bear arms, and you have 5 weapons, and you can, there it is. You are bearing arms. You have 5 weapons. You can defend you and your household. You see what I'm saying? And you're talking about each person. So if you have 3 people in your household, that's 15 weapons. That is 15 weapons. It doesn't matter if your daughter's 5 or your daughter's 18. It has no age limit on that. That comes out with local laws. And then, like I said, you got 12-year-old kids running around here that shoot better than me and you both together.
Well, maybe not better.
You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking about eagle eyes. I mean,
right.
these kids can shoot. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, if it's 3 people in your household, it's you, your wife, and your daughter. That is 15 guns you can now have in your house. That's 15 guns. If you can't,
but you're saying they can't all be the same type.
No. I'm not saying they can't be the same type. If you literally, I'm not trying to put a thing on that. If you want to buy 15 AR-15s because the federal government or locally, you can have 5 weapons, up to 5 weapons with this type of license. That's your right to bear arms. Okay, boom. I want 5 AR-15s, and I want my daughter to have 5 AR-15s. And I want my wife to have 5 AR-15s. There's no argument. No argument. You now have 15 AR-15s. If you cannot defend your sovereignty with that, I don't know what else is the right to bear arms. I just don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to gun collection and having over a certain amount of guns, you have to have a separate license for that so you don't have these yahoos out here. You just have to. You have to separate the two because there is a difference between having 350 guns and having 15 guns. There is, which is 5 per person in your household. There is a big difference with that. It really is.
Right. But I've been asked the question.
Yeah.
Why do you need multiple guns? And my answer to that, because of the right.
Yeah.
Being a right, not a privilege, but it's a right. It's my right to have them, and it's really none of your business what I plan to do
with them. And you are correct. That is your right to have them, and it's none of the government's business. So, do you have multiple guns? Yes. That is and to tell you the truth, if the government comes out with different classes of weapons, and I'm not talking about this is an assault weapon versus this is a hunting weapon. Like I said, the example we gave later, if you take a hunting rifle, which is considered a hunting rifle, and you go out and hunt deer with it, it's a hunting rifle. If I take the same weapon and go assassinate a person with it, it's now a sniper rifle or an assault weapon. So again, I don't think you can class stuff into specifically rifles into assault versus, this is a regular weapon. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing is, we already see that with the AR-15.
Yes.
It's considered a military style weapon. It's not even close.
It's not.
The fact that it's got a plastic stock on it and it's black.
Yeah.
Now,
guess what? Again, they got kits out here. A 9mm is a service weapon to many law enforcement agencies and security people and whatever. 9mm is a regular weapon. It's not considered an assault weapon. It's not considered a bad weapon. It's just a weapon for defense. Weapon for somebody to do their job, right? They got a kit out here that when you convert that bad boy, and I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen so y'all can see it. They got kits out here where you can convert that bad boy and make it look like pretty much it's an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now is that same 9mm shooting the same round an assault weapon? I'm just asking the question.
That's just it. Definitions are important.
Yes,
and I say this a lot. We cannot solve an issue unless we can determine what the truth really is.
Yeah.
So we're calling an A-15 an assault rifle.
Yeah.
I hear that term a lot. It's really more, honestly, it's more of a handgun than it is anything else.
Yeah.
Except that you put a stock on it and you made it black.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and it's I read an article earlier today, and it called it a semi-automatic rapid fire. No.
Yeah. It is. If you put it in burst mode, that's the rapid fire. But go ahead.
What exactly is burst mode?
It's a 3-round burst.
You got to pull the trigger 3 times.
No, you just hold the trigger down once, and 3 rounds come out.
That's no longer semi-automatic. Semi-automatic is every
yes.
shot requires a pull of the
trigger. Yes.
So if it's semi-automatic, you have to. I saw a video one time, and it was a military guy, and I think he was doing it for the fame because it made absolutely no sense what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was saying if I go into fully semi-automatic mode.
I'm just telling you, I think
which meant he was pulling the trigger really fast.
No, I'm just telling you, there's a burst mode on the AR-15. It's a 3-round burst. That's what it's called.
Oh, I'm gonna.
So you depress it. You depress the trigger one time, and it lets out 3 rounds. That's it. That's it. It just lets out 3 rounds.
Okay. As Mike continues to talk, I'm going to look up burst mode on AR-15.
Yeah. So see.
2-round.
Oh, it's a 2-round burst. I stand corrected. It's a 2-round burst now. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm gonna have to learn more about that so that we can talk about that.
Yeah, but that's all it is. It's just it lets out a burst, and then that's it. It's done. No matter how long you hold that trigger down,
Okay. Well, see, now there's certain double barrel shotguns where you pull the trigger, and it fires one. When you release it, fires the other.
Ah, didn't know that.
Yeah. So now all you rifle or shotgun enthusiasts, if I am wrong about that, correct me. But I'm pretty sure that's the way that worked. My grandfather had one, and that's how I understood it to work. But I believe he had another one where it had 2 triggers on it. So I don't know. Maybe this is one I should have researched further. I didn't know we were going there.
Okay. But my thing is that again, I don't think we need to ban guns or take certain guns off the market or whatever. I think if you're a collector will jump through whatever hoop they need to get access to a certain gun that they have a passion to have in their collection. I think that kind of passion runs the same as collecting comic books and cars and motorcycles and anything else. I really do I don't have a problem with a collector owning a minigun. Don't care. He's a collector. Like, what's in his collection? You see what I'm saying? When you go to his house, how does he take? I mean, you're gonna see how these people have a passion for weapons and weapons history and anything like that. So I just personally don't have a problem with a gun collector owning a minigun or anything else that's like out there. So, but when it comes to the average Joe Smo Smuckatelli civilian that has the right to bear arms, which is everybody in the United States of America that's a citizen, okay, a legal citizen, you should be able to buy any gun you want within reason to protect your household or to bear arms. But I don't think it's wrong to put a number on that, to put a cap on that. I just don't, because one person can only fire so many guns. You could just say it gets to a point where there's some kind of tyranny or some kind of outside force that's trying to take over America. How many weapons do you need to defend yourself? How many rounds do you need to defend yourself? You see what I'm saying? Like you can only shoot one weapon at a time. You know what I'm saying? Now, and when I say that, I don't want people posting onto the feed. No, because I can have a 9mm and a 40 in one hand and a 40 in the other hand. I could do. Look, we get it.
Okay, but, so the number is 2.
Yes, but nobody is firing. Okay, a fully automatic weapon in both hands, and you know what I mean by that. Okay, because we all understand there's little tricks and stuff you can do to AR-15s and some of these other weapons, and we've seen the videos where you're out there, y'all going through these like these clips with like 100 rounds in them. So we get it, but you're not doing that with two hands, not efficiently anyway. Let me put it that way. Okay.
Well, as a matter of fact, in that video when the guy said he went into fully semi-auto mode,
yeah,
he just started pulling the trigger really fast, but he lost all his accuracy.
Yeah.
I mean, so he was like hitting everything just because he was hitting or shooting fast. So it's just the way guns work. I mean, they kick. You know, there is physics. You know?
So then we still have to entertain the conversation with a group of people that are lobbying to ban assault weapons. So then the question is, what's this an assault weapon? Like I said earlier, if I kill a deer, it's a hunting rifle. If I kill a person, it's an assault weapon. What is an assault weapon?
Okay, and that actually leads us right into what's going on here in Virginia. Virginia, this is from WTOP. This article, it's from the Associated Press, says Virginia lawmakers reject assault weapon ban. Okay, so in case you don't know what's going on here in Virginia, we had a Senate bill, SB 240, which was meant to essentially limit the sale of new assault weapons. So basically, and they just called it an assault weapon. I'm not sure that the bill spelled out exactly what an assault weapon was. But Governor Ralph Northam, what has happened here in Virginia in the last election is our state flipped from red to green, or red to blue.
Yeah.
Red to blue. And so now all of a sudden the Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the governorship. So all of a sudden they're and he did campaign on gun control.
Yes.
So he got elected in. He's really pushing on the actually gun bans. It's actually been outright bans in some cases.
Yeah.
I have several different articles. One of them saying that the bill itself was far more comprehensive than some other states, where basically instead of let's see if I can find that real quick. Instead of saying this is on the red line law. Or I'm sorry, 240 was the red line law. It clear and convincing evidence and poses a substantial risk of personal injury to himself or to other individuals in the near future. Basically, most states are using clear and convincing, where Virginia is saying substantial risk. So it's not just clear and convincing. It's actually a much higher standard that's got to be reached before they can take the gun away. The problem here is, in the other states, they only allow family members who live in the household or law enforcement to say, hey, this person's a risk. We can take their guns on a temporary basis and give time to figure out whether or not this person really is a risk. The standard in the Virginia law really was you have to meet a much higher standard, but anybody basically could issue like if somebody didn't like you,
yes,
they could essentially
where this
say that you're a danger to somebody because they just don't like the fact that you own guns.
Okay.
It could be done, and there were no real repercussions against that person.
Okay, so this is where this is going. Domestic violence. There are many cases where there have been more times than others. It's been women that have been the victims of domestic violence by the hands of men, and nothing was done, and the men came back later with guns and shot their girlfriends or their wives or their significant others. Okay, so this is one of the issues that's being looked at besides mental health and everything else. So what do you do when domestic violence is involved? How do you get the gun or take access away from a person, whether it's a man or whether it's a male or female, for the potential harm for them to come back out of anger and shoot their significant other? So, like I said, I really do believe there is no law you're going to put in place to stop somebody from killing somebody else. If they really want to kill somebody, they're going to do it. Whether they use gun, knife, pipe, bat, car, whatever, they're going to do it. Okay, now said that, there is definitely a way that local laws can be enforced to where if you got to put paperwork on somebody for a domestic violence case, I think the cops should put in place that the weapon should be confiscated. If the cops have to seriously write up a domestic violence case and put a court case in place, or put some kind of a 24-hour my words are leaving me. When you tell somebody they can't come to the house. Yeah, see? If you got to put a restraining order, there we go.
Order, yeah.
A 24, if the cops have to seriously put a restraining order on somebody and tell a significant other they can't come back to that address for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. If somebody's actually being arrested because there's evidence that you physically harmed somebody, and there's a domestic violence case that's going to be wrote up about it, I think when you run their name in the system and it comes up that they have a carry to concealed, or they have a weapons permit, immediately this says you have a weapons permit, ma'am or sir. Do you currently have that weapon on you or in your vehicle? No, I do not. Where is this weapon at? It's at my house. Somebody got to go get that weapon and confiscate that and tell that person that they can have this weapon back once the case is over. You see what I'm saying?
I think I would agree with that, because they do. That's a safety issue now.
Yeah.
Because you have a domestic situation.
Yeah.
Where someone can get hurt. Now, that does not, because the weapon is gone, doesn't mean that the violence is necessarily gone.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that.
Because we actually see that too, where, for instance, in I believe it's London, where guns are essentially banned. The number,
but the stabbings though are like through the roof.
Right. So, because one of the arguments I hear a lot, I know I'm switching gears all of a sudden, I hear this argument a lot. Well, in the countries where guns are banned, the number of gun deaths goes down.
But the assaults
do not.
They do not. The
number of murders typically takes a dip.
Yeah.
But then it comes right back up. But now the weapon of choice is different.
Yes.
And that's the only difference.
And again, gun violence only went down because they made it harder for everybody to get guns, because nobody wants to get caught with it, because you're going to jail for life or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, whatever it might be. But but that's just it. If someone wants to do harm,
they're going to do it,
and guns are not available, then they won't use a gun. They'll use something else.
They won't use a gun.
We also saw that the AR-15 is currently the weapon of choice for mass shooters. And how did that exactly happen? Because it used to be handguns. Well, the news was so full of AR-15 stuff that people who intended to do a mass shooting thought, oh, I'd rather go with that, because the news made it so much better than what I was going to use.
Yeah.
I was going to use handguns, but since they made the AR-15 so much better, I'm going to go get that.
Yeah. That's
how it became the weapon of choice. And that sounds kind of ludicrous, but you get what you advertise.
Yeah, there you go.
You advertise AR-15s, which was all a lot of
and mental note, when Kevin says you get what you advertise, that's the reason why the federal government doesn't allow cigarette makers to advertise anymore.
Well, exactly.
Because the kids were picking that stuff up like, oh yeah, I want to wear Joe Camel and all the rest of this gear. Mm-hmm. So you got these kids wearing all this gear that they're getting from cigarette companies. But that's another subject.
Can you advertise those inhaler or those what do they call them?
No, the cigarette. No, they can't.
Okay, so you can't advertise that, but the news talks about it all the time.
Yes.
And all of a sudden everybody's using
it. Yes.
Especially kids. Kids are using it now too.
Yes.
And it's really because it's out there through the news rather than through actual advertising.
Yes.
Actually, if you want to do the best advertising ever, get on the news. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Virginia law.
Yes.
The fact that, okay, so basically this SB 240, I did find it here. It included the AR-15 and possession of magazines with more than 12 rounds and certain other semi-automatic firearms. That is what it was going to ban the new sale of. They were not looking to confiscate the current ownership of them,
Yeah.
but they were looking at no new sales of those particular weapons. And for Democrats, actually, most of the moderates, they said, you know what, this is going a little bit too far. And they decided, they actually tabled the bill for another year in the House. I guess it's the House. No, I'm sorry. It's actually in the Senate. It passed the Senate committee. It went to somewhere for, I know I got the stats here somewhere. It was referred to Committee of the Judiciary. Since then, it has now been tabled for the next year, and then it will probably come back at us at that point. They thought they had this one in the bag because the Democrat controlled the Senate, but the moderates themselves, they are basically, they are coming from districts where it's still kind of red.
Well,
they have to go back and explain that.
I don't think it's that either. It's just like it's just like when they had the. It's just like gun culture in general. And I hate to say this, I hate to bring up a racial point, but it just seems like that when you look at what people post on Facebook. Like, you have to understand, like, there are people outside of white culture that like guns too, that are responsible gun owners, and they are in support of the Second Amendment, and they do not want the government trying to restrict their ability to obtain weapons or weapons for themselves, because they have the right to buy those weapons. So again, my proposal is not to restrict what weapons necessarily you can buy, just how you ascertain them. You know what I'm saying? If you really think, well, it's my right to have 350 weapons, okay, well, jump through your hoops and get a gun collector's license then. If you really feel that strongly, jump through hoops and go get a gun collector's license. Once you earn that, once you become a responsible citizen in getting that legally, you can own all the weapons you want, my brother. Like, get them. But I think it's irresponsible to tell every single American they have a right to have 300 weapons in their home. That's your right. Go get all the weapons you want. Are you serious? But yet, like I said, the privilege of driving is separated into how many different driver's licenses that you have to get.
I actually find Mike's idea here intriguing, to say the least. Breaking the guns into certain classes, breaking ownership into certain classes.
Yeah.
But the limitations on like on the mental illness on
now that is I'm not feeling that.
Yeah, see,
I'm not feeling that.
I mean, I sort of agree with it, because someone with schizophrenia, even with medication, there may be issues, but at the same time there may not be. So how do you make that determination? Do you just say, well, like
let me tell you from my side of the fence.
Well, the government always does this. Okay. It's a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. So you got schizophrenia, oh, you are never going to own the gun. Ever.
Okay. Let me tell you from my side of the fence why I don't agree with that. Do you know how many black children did not qualify for certain social programs that were sponsored by a lot of things in our community, all because they was on Ritalin?
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yes. I went through it. There have been friends of mine that I grew up with in Baltimore that have that same issue right now. People that I grew up with when I moved down here in the military in the state of Virginia, when I lived in Virginia Beach, there were parents that could not qualify their kids for certain daycare because, we don't take anybody with a mental illness. What do you mean? He's on Ritalin. Yeah, that we consider that mental illness.
Right.
And somebody would say, well, that's BS. We don't do that down here. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but these are realistic experiences that happened to myself with my son, okay, and other people that I've known that lived in Virginia Beach. Now, does that mean the whole country operates like that? No, but because I've had that experience, I am leery about that whole, you're mental illness, you can't do this, we're going to restrict you from that. I'm kind of leery about that.
Well, that's the other thing. When you talk about mental illness, what what mental illnesses fall into?
I'm telling you, ADHD is there, my man. It's there.
Honestly,
they consider it a certain type of psychological illness that disqualifies you from certain things.
Right, exactly, and so I'm with you. Like for me, I was diagnosed. I am cured of that illness.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was diagnosed with that mental illness, and that sticks with you for life.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, the reason I sought treatment was because I really needed help.
Mm-hmm.
But because I sought treatment, all of a sudden I can't do certain things. So it's better for me not to expose.
Yeah. It's better to just lie. Just say, "Oh, is something wrong with you?" No, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
The only way somebody's going to know you're lying is if you take a blood test for health insurance or something like.
But even then, that's not going to show mental illness.
So it's going to tell you. It's going to show you taking a certain medication. It comes back, and then they say, "Hey, Mr. Beers, why are you taking this medication?"
That's only if they're looking for the medication too.
Oh, that's true.
They have to be looking.
They
for
have
it.
to be looking for it. Yeah.
So it's that. But I mean, they do ask. Well, they're in insurance because I do insurance. I do life insurance. I have a business and financial services. But one of the things that we have this medical information database,
mm-hmm.
and if you're taking any drugs, it's in there.
See?
So the life insurance company knows, and actually that's one of those cases where again.
So what if they start using that database for
I could not qualify for life insurance because I was on an antipsychotic.
See, there you go. So that's a system telling you that you are uninsurable.
Exactly.
Because we think you're just going to go out there and just kill yourself to make sure your wife's well off. Like, really? There's a high probability of that? Like, come on, man.
Well, the fact that I'm taking an antipsychotic means that if I go off my medication, that could happen. However, I've suffered with this illness for over 40 years with no medication. I've never harmed them. I never missed a day of work.
That's a cop out.
I never harmed anybody. Yeah. I never did anything to harm myself. I thought about it. I will say I did think about it, but that was actually depression that was controlling that, not the reason I was on the antipsychotic. There were all these things that. It's almost a case by case, and then you say, "Well, how can you do case by case?" Because there's 320 million people in the country. So
I mean, you really can't even do that. I mean, it's sort of like the same question when people say, "What does depression look like?" And you see all these guys that were happy and smiling, and they had money and they had careers, but yet they overdosed or they killed themselves. So at the end of the day, it's got to be the same thing for guns. Like, how do you start becoming a thought police when you start trying to invent laws to stop stuff that is literally uncontrollable. Like you can't control the uncontrollable. You just can't.
Exactly.
Like I understand why we have police, but there's never going to be zero crime. Even though we're working towards that, there's never going to be zero crime. You can't control people like that.
And the thing that prompts gun control talks all the time are school shootings.
Yes.
Mass shootings themselves do also, but gun shootings in particular.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the possibility of a gun of some kind of mass shooting in a school is so incredibly minuscule. And yes, it's tragedy. I'm not trying to downplay people who have lost their children. I'm not trying to downplay any of that. But what's happening is we are teaching our children to be afraid at school, when in real life the odds of that ever happening is just minuscule.
So what somebody would argue is, you believe that everybody having the right to a gun is worth a kid's death. That's an extremist view. I'm just saying it because I've seen it out there already.
Yes, I've seen it too.
Okay.
Because to me, no, it's nothing is worth a child's death. Mm-hmm. Nothing, absolutely nothing. However, we ban all the guns. If someone has a beef,
they're going to find a way to kill those people.
They're going to find a way.
Yeah.
And I don't. There's really no way around that. I mean, actually, Australia. I want to talk about Australia a little bit. the question of, did gun control really eliminate mass shootings in Australia? And I've looked at a whole bunch of different things on this one. Some people claim that, yeah, hey, as soon as they put the gun control in place, then actually there's never been a mass shooting. Well, here we got a problem. Mass shootings in Australia are determined as 5 deaths or more, where in America it's 3 deaths or more. Actually, it's 3 or 4, depending on if you use an FBI standard versus a congressional standard.
Yeah.
So everybody determines everything a different way. I actually looked at the Australia stats. If you don't use the 5 and go with the 4, it's a whole different story. The entire story is different.
Oh, by one number.
Just by one number.
See?
So and the other thing is, because there's the number of people in Australia is only a little bit more than Florida, and they are spread out over an entire country versus a smaller state.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of land difference. Again, you don't have all these people compact into the same place.
Yeah.
It's hard to do a mass shooting if there's only one person there. You know what I mean? I mean, let's say
I got you.
It's me and Mike. We can't have a mass shooting because there's only 2 of us.
Yes.
I mean, one of us is going to live, one of us is going to die, and
yes,
it's not a mass shooting.
there you go.
So and then the thing was, after the gun ban that occurred, and apparently they only acquired 20% of the actual weapons that were out there. And actually today there are more weapons than what there were back when the gun ban started.
Because, and again, people want to have stuff. Why? Because they can't have it.
Well, in Australia, everything can kill you,
You
so
see what I'm
you
saying?
have to have a gun.
Yeah, but
that's the whole point. So this argument, and the thing is, because there's only the number of actual deaths by gun is so small in Australia that if it changes by 10 or 20 or 30, it really skews so let's say the rate of murder. Let's say there's 100 deaths a year. I mean, it's actually a very low number. So if you eliminate 10 of those deaths by gun, all of a sudden that's 10% drop in shootings or in murders. But if you look at in the United States, if we have 10,000, we got to drop it by 1,000 to reach that same rate. And maybe we drop it by 300. Well, that's still a pretty good rate, but percentage-wise, it doesn't look as good as Australia. So the claim that Australia fixed all their problems by banning the guns actually doesn't hold water. If you look at all the actual numbers, and then you look at the actual murders, they stayed about the same. Well, there was a dip at the start of the gun ban.
Because people had to come up with different ways to work that beef out.
Right. So it took a little while to get all that back.
Yeah.
But then also, the United States, starting in the early 1990s, it actually, our number of murders by gun peaked in, I think it's 1990. And we actually have a graphic that we can put up there. And then it rapidly dropped. And it continued dropping even to this day. I think for the first time in the past year, it started to go up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's been this rapid drop. That also occurred in Europe. It occurred in New Zealand. You just go down the list of all the first world countries. It happened everywhere, including Australia. But Australia doesn't keep good records, apparently. So I mean,
man, somebody from Australia is going to call you and be like,
yeah, I know. But but the thing was, what it shows on the graphic is that prior to 1996, I mean, when they started the gun ban, they really started keeping records. Yeah. I mean, because it's an important thing to see if your laws was working or not. But the thing is, records prior to that were not that good. I got the graphic somewhere, and I also got the article. Maybe we can post all that together.
Okay.
So they were seeing the exact same drop we were seeing. So essentially, the gun ban may have had absolutely nothing to do with the drop. It was happening universally.
Gotcha.
So and the fact that it was so few murders to start with in Australia, that a fluctuation of a small number just skews the numbers very big.
Yeah.
At the same time, so there's really no
evidence out there that says we banned guns and the killing went down. in general. That's what we're saying.
Actually, we also went through a couple of months where London had more murders than New York City, but it was all by knife versus gun.
See, told you. Stabbings went through the roof.
Now it was only a couple of months,
Yeah.
and then it dropped down below again. But
yeah.
but at that point, it had peaked out. I think New York actually dropped during those 2 months too, so it kind of skewed it a little bit. But the fact that there's so many murderers is just not with a gun. So did it really? And we also know that most murders occur within relationships.
Yeah.
It's rarely
like you're murdered by somebody
you know.
More than likely you're murdered by somebody you know than somebody you don't know.
Exactly. So again, now you can say, hey, well, we stopped the gun ban type of thing, or we do a gun ban and that'll stop some of that from happening. Again, what is statistically found is that there's always that dip in those countries where they ban the guns, but then it rises back up. It's just with a different weapon now.
Yes.
So I think we really need to be looking at what are the numbers showing us. Earlier Mike he didn't do it during the show, but earlier he brought up the fact that they tried really strong gun control in certain cities.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is guns can come in from the outside because a city, Australia is one of those cases where that's not going to happen because they're surrounded by ocean.
Yeah.
Chicago is surrounded by Illinois and then the rest of the country. So it's
so
too easy to get things
how many ways can you get into Illinois and get something illegal in there?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know what's inside that big giant semi that just rolled past you on the highway. You don't know what's in there.
So that's one of those cases where when you try things locally in this country, and even if it works, you can't say it really worked necessarily because of the outside influence.
And again, the numbers are skewed. Like, you got you got people talking about that there's more crime in the inner city than there is any place else. Well, look at how those people are packed on top of each other and live around each other. Okay. Then you have to ask yourself, if there's more crime there, why? Which is another discussion we're going to have about economic disparity. But before we go there, you got to ask yourself why that crime is there. Because if you're arresting all these people, black, white, Puerto Rican, don't matter. If you're arresting all these people in the inner cities because more crime is there, how is it getting there? How the guns getting there? How's the drugs getting there? How's all that stuff getting into those cities? Because at the end of the day, no matter how many people you arrest in the inner city, none of them had the means to get that stuff in. They don't own any trucks, no semi companies, no trucking companies. They don't own no boats. They don't own none of that stuff. How does that stuff get there? For those poor people to gain access to it and then rob each other. You have to ask yourself that. Because if I really care about public safety, I am not going to focus on the end item. Because I already know what the end item is. I don't want that end item. What causes that end item? That person to have a gun and go rob an old lady coming home after she got paid at working at McDonald's or whatever. Take her to the ATM, make her put her card in there and empty out her bank account, and then you run off. Okay? I understand that needs to be documented. We need to find that guy and arrest him. He broke the law. But I want to know, how did he get that gun? Because he doesn't own any shipping or trucking companies, and it's illegal for him to get it. He didn't buy it legally. How did that gun get into the city? So that's what you got to find out. I think we should be focusing on that.
Okay. There was one thing I wanted to bring up about the mass shootings before we moved on. A while back, CNN claimed, I'm actually reading from an article here. Maybe we can get the citation up there. CNN claimed that the U.S. has the most mass shootings. The Wall Street Journal reported the U.S. leads the world in mass shootings. Nearly every major media outlet and former President Obama said the same thing. The claim was based on one study, just one study, a professor named Adam Lankford. Basically, he did a study. He said he studied 171 countries from 1966 to 2012, and he had complete data of mass shootings and determined that the United States had more mass shootings than any other country. The problem, the holes that were poked into this were the fact that most of those countries that he studied don't really keep good records, and you're only going to find it in local newspapers.
Yeah.
And the local newspapers are going to be in languages that most people don't understand because it's the local language. And the fact that Langford refused to reveal any details of how he gathered the information. He would not share the information for those who wanted to verify it. And he would not even give his methodology. It was nothing. But he released this report, and every major news media picked it up. Obama quoted it too. And again, that goes back to where Reagan...
You quoted the wacky weed thing or the local weed thing. Gotcha.
That's on another show. Where Reagan quoted something which was completely false. You know, they rely on their people to make sure they get the right information. Someone picked this up and gave it to Obama, and he ended up quoting it. And a lot of problems with the actual data itself. Langford says that he excluded sponsored terrorism, but does not define what he means by that. And so this guy Lott, who looked into all this, he actually hired an entire team who went into those 171 countries. Actually dug up the information from the local locale, found that everything that Langford put out was garbage.
Say it was garbage.
That the United,
it's totally bogus.
When it comes to the United States, we when you look at all these other countries, we are actually something like number 40 or something on the list.
Last time I checked, Gaza Strip.
You can. Well, there's 39 to pick from.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, you got to look at that. Like, them people have been fighting way longer than the U.S. has even been a sovereign country.
Well, many of the South American countries automatically go above the United States when it comes to gun violence. Well, this was actually mass shootings that we were talking about, so I don't want to go there. Excuse me. But just looking at mass shootings again, they were able to disprove the fact that we were the worst just by going in. But he actually hired an entire staff to dig into that. He had to hire translators.
I mean, you have to look at. I mean, if you want to kind of focus in on a point, I would talk about school shootings. I wouldn't even talk about mass shootings, because there's nowhere in the world we lead the country in mass shootings. We lead the world in mass shootings. I can tell you that right now. Not with all the fighting that has been going on for the ages since the gun was invented. Right. So, but if you want to talk about specifically school shootings, specifically done by anybody 18 years or under and done in a school, we could talk about that. Well, I get that.
It's even hard to talk about school shootings because school shootings include oftentimes when the kids aren't even in school. It was done on school property.
That's exactly what I mean. So if you're talking about a shooting that was done by an assailant that was 18 years or under on school property, school shooting.
Okay.
We could talk about that all day long. You know what I'm saying? But again, we have to define what that is. Now, if it's two, and I hate to say this, you got two crackheads on a playground at a school, and one gets mad at the other one because he think he ripped him off and stole his crack from him, and one pulls out the gun and shoots the other one. I'm just saying, stuff like that's happened. Right. So I don't consider that a school shooting.
Okay. Yeah. So again, this comes down to my whole point. We can't fix a problem until we know the actual truth of the numbers we're looking at.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, and definitions. So when we say assault rifle, is an AR-15 an assault rifle? Not by true definition.
Not by true definition.
No, not by true definition. It just looks scary.
And again, we
I mean, it should be scary because it's a gun, not to scare you, but you need to respect
the whole definition of an assault weapon. The term assault weapon is anything used to assault a person, a human being, or animal, or whatever. You're using the weapon to do an assault, and which is bodily or physical harm to another human being, or dog or cat or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, me putting a pipe in my hand and hitting Kevin over the head, that pipe is an assault weapon. I assaulted Kevin with a pipe. If I have a bat in my hand and I hit Kevin, that bat is an assault weapon. So again, we have to be real careful what we're talking about when we say assault weapons.
Okay. An assault weapon is a term used in the United States to define some
Types of firearms. See, that's not
And
literally
And
true
the,
all the
the
time.
definition varies among regulating jurisdictions, but usually includes semi-automatic firearms with detachable magazine, a
See?
pistol grip, and sometimes other features such as vertical forward grip, flash suppressor, or barrel shroud. Some firearms are specified by name, and then it goes on to more about that.
Yeah.
But the
So what they're saying is that an assault weapon can only be an assault weapon under those physical characteristics, which means that anything that looks like an AR-15 is considered an assault weapon. So I then ask you, if you take a kit and put it on a 9mm, why is it an assault weapon all of a sudden when it was just a defensive home weapon, 5 minutes before then?
Right. But I'm looking at the history of the terminology, and basically it varies from a grenade launcher,
Yes,
M16, and shoulder launch multi-purpose assault weapon,
weapons. See,
rocket launcher, which was a rocket launcher introduced in 1984, to the California State Assembly calling the only use of assault weapons is to shoot people. So if you're using a gun to shoot people, it's an assault weapon, which is exactly what you were just saying.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't do that. So now you're saying that every single gun ever invented and created and made and put into a person's hands, male or female, is now an assault weapon. If they ever try to use it to kill a person, it is now deemed an assault weapon. So a 9mm is an assault weapon because it's been used to kill people. A baby 9mm or 357 or 380 is now an assault weapon because it was used to kill people. A 22 caliber handgun is now an assault weapon because it's been documented that it's been used to kill people. You can't tell me there's nobody that's gonna be able to post a weapon, a gun, a handgun, a rifle, anything that was ever created. Even an elephant gun was used to kill somebody. So any weapon that was ever made, any handgun or firearm that was ever made and it was used to kill somebody, it is technically an assault weapon.
Okay, now that's assault weapon. Now there is a definition. Apparently there's a distinction with assault rifle. Assault rifle basically has to be automatic.
See, there you go.
So basically,
a minigun is an assault rifle.
No gun that you can legally own is an assault rifle.
You see what I'm saying?
No one can.
That's an M60, a 50 cal, a minigun. What? A 20 mic coming out of an aircraft? I mean, what are we talking about? Like, right. Really?
Actually, I'm looking at Wikipedia, just so you know. And I don't use Wikipedia as a citation very often. This one is consistent with my understanding of all of it. But it says that cosmetic features actually move certain guns by certain definitions into the assault rifle or into the assault weapon category. Like I said, the stock on an AR-15. It's made of plastic and it's black. And therefore,
and it serves a physical function. That's why the stock is there.
So... so it becomes an assault weapon because it's got a piece of plastic on it.
Yeah, and come on.
Black. So I often ask this question too. So what if it were pink or rainbow? What would it still be an assault rifle?
Exactly.
Or an assault weapon?
Exactly.
I don't think it would be because it's too
But
pretty now.
it a lot of disqualifying statements here because at the end of the day, any weapon that has been held by a human being and used to try to kill another human being is technically an assault weapon. And that is, come on, common sense, people. Like, really? And again, let's say we say, well, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're just trying to ban AR-15s and those weapons that we think people don't need to have. Okay, thought police. People don't need to have AR-15s. People don't need to have machine guns. People don't need to have 50 cals, and people don't need to have Desert Eagle. People don't need to have these weapons. You ban all of them because they're bad weapons. We still got guns out there that people can use to kill other people with. What have you stopped? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You cannot make an argument that banning so-called assault rifles is going to stop kids from killing kids. I don't know where that ideology comes from. I don't even know where that point comes. Like, how are you going to prove that? Banning an Uzi, or banning a MAC-10, or banning a AK, what was it, AK-47 or whatever they call that gun, banning a AR-15, banning any of those guns I just mentioned is not going to not even put a dent in the reasoning for somebody to kill somebody else.
Well, like I said, the AR-15 being the weapon of choice for mass shooting is actually a very recent thing. Prior to that, it was all pistols or handguns.
Where was this line of reasoning when all these Uzis and MAC-10s were on the street? Yeah. I'm just saying, where was that line of reasoning?
Oh, okay, I'm not following what you're saying.
Exactly. The reason you're not following what I'm saying is because that's a cultural thing now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Now you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
No kid in the suburbs committed these heinous crimes with a MAC-10 or Uzi.
Right.
Okay?
The thing is, as a kid, I actually heard of those guns. Well, maybe not as a kid, maybe as a teenager.
Everybody heard of those guns. That's what the gangsters use.
Yeah,
exactly. You see what I'm saying?
But no one actually had one.
Again, it doesn't matter because those guns have been around since when everybody wanted to talk about black on black crime and the gangsters in the inner city, all that stuff about the MAC-10 and the Uzi, nobody cared. Nobody wanted to ban them guns. Now, was there mothers in the neighborhood saying that they should ban those guns? Yeah, but it didn't have a national following. It didn't. Nobody cared. All of a sudden, we moved that gun violence into areas not prone for gun violence. And all of a sudden, we have to ban AR-15s. We have to ban assault rifles. Again, where was this following when it was happening in certain neighborhoods?
The following began when Columbine hit. That's when it started.
Which is how many years after the so-called... You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So my question is if you don't care about MAC-10s and Uzis, why do you care about the AR-15 so much? Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the reason is because if you're a politician, you have to look like you're doing something. I'm totally serious about it,
dude.
So we're gonna pass some kind of legislation that makes you feel better, and if you feel better, then I've done my job, and you can vote for me again.
Yeah,
and that's just it. A lot of this legislation is feel-good legislation. It really does not accomplish
anything. Nothing.
I find many of the laws that are on the books are all just feel-good kind of things. They're not for public safety. They're not. They're supposedly
for public safety.
But they don't accomplish the goal, and that's one of the problems. I will give Australia this: the fact that they started their record, they really picked up on the record keeping once they. It looks like they really only started keeping records around 1992 or so, or records that were reliable. Once they put that law in place, they were keeping some really good records. And I thought I give them credit for that, because if you want to see if your law really works, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
You got to keep records. I just noticed that we're keeping different kinds of stats now starting in 2018.
Yeah.
Where we're actually breaking out the types of shootings a little more. Rather than just total gun deaths, now it's like gun death by murder, gun death by suicide, gun death by accidental, things like that. So it's really breaking it out, because if you want to look at suicide, that's a whole different problem. If you're just looking at how can we reduce the number of deaths, well, there's a bunch of things you can do, but if you really break it out into its numbers, suicide is a big percentage of it. So that's a whole nother issue. Let's look at that by itself. How do we do that? How do we make that work? And if it's by gun, typically, well, let's look at, has anybody else broken those numbers out that way? A lot of suicides are done by gun, but I believe there's more by drug overdose and hanging, and there's other ways.
Yeah.
So let's break the numbers down. Now, if gun is the primary one, and let's say we are able to get a lot of those guns out of the hands of people who commit suicide, does the number of suicides really go down? That's the question. That's what we have to look for.
And again, that's a good question. That's a good question to ask. That's what we're looking for. But
because we look at it like, okay, so country like Australia, they buy back 20% of the guns.
Mm-hmm.
We see that murder by gun does go down. But that's not the end of the story. Did murders themselves
go down? And that's the problem. That's what we want. We want that.
The answer to that is no.
See?
So we saw the same thing in England. Ban the guns. Did the number of murders go down? No. But murder by gun did.
Yeah.
So you accomplished nothing, because you just eliminated one weapon and made another weapon the better
choice. Yeah. That's what we don't want. That's what we're not trying to do here. We're not trying to make a law just to appease a group of people that doesn't solve the social issue, so to speak.
Exactly. There's so maybe we'll talk about this at another time, but the reason so many kids are depressed versus before.
Yes.
Why is that? And so I think in some cases we mask it with medication so that we don't have to actually find out what's the real reason. So I relate that to the guns also. We can ban the guns, but does it really change what's going on?
Yeah. Because if somebody's depressed, they're still depressed. If somebody is depressed because they think that they're just wallowing in this world where of hate and despair because of what they're going through somewhere, whether it be at work, college, school, whatever. Banning guns is not going to stop their mindset or stop their whatever they're where they're at. All you did was take one viable or easy or even easier way of them to carry out where they're at.
Well, you're only talking about suicide. I'm talking about like the whole gamut, like the murders.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Everything in general.
Yeah.
What's causing that rate of killing each other?
But
what's causing?
And again, the problem is that we as people don't want to have that conversation because it's going to trigger a lot of people that feel like I shouldn't have to contribute to that because it has nothing to do with me, even though it does have something to do with you.
Right. And the other thing that gets uncomfortable when you start having those conversations, it might break down along racial lines. It might. I'm not saying it does.
Well,
but it might.
Being though this country is America, it probably will.
It might break down along socioeconomic lines.
Mm-hmm.
It might break down over actually physical location. For instance, certain states might have a much higher rate than other states.
Yeah.
It could break down. We're so afraid to look at that because it might create some kind of inequality. But maybe the whole issue is based on an inequality that's occurring somehow. So we got to have that conversation to figure it out.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing this for, because we want to have that conversation. And another thing, we definitely want you to put your comments up on the post for this episode. If you're pro guns, anti-gun, if you think guns should be banned, if you don't think guns should be banned, if you have an idea for common sense legislation or whatever, we definitely want to hear from you to put it up on the post. I think
I would also like to say that we'll be watching all those comments also, and maybe we'll be responding to them.
Yes.
For instance, the way a lot of this started, Mike would say something, and I would just ask him a series of questions to really get him to define what he's trying to say to me. So that's how these conversations all got started in the first place.
And if you have a really good post on a good point, we did not entertain it. We didn't entertain that point in this episode, and you have a point for that, and you post it, we will definitely put that on an episode and revisit the issue and be like, hey, Mandy from Nebraska put this in there, and we didn't even think about that. And
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that'll be
And because we're just getting started too, sometimes we go off on little tangents here and there. We're trying to get better about that.
Yeah.
But this is only like our second or third episode right now.
Yeah.
So we're working toward that. We need your help to do that. Help us stay on point. Show us where the things that we don't think about. Maybe we should have researched something a little bit better, whatever it might be. We want you to be part of this conversation. And again, we don't go for the name calling, the demonizing. Don't do that. We will ban you if that occurs. We honestly, we want to have a real conversation. That's what this is all about. Let's have the conversation that we're not allowed to have anywhere else. Mike and I, again, we disagree on how because I think it's a right versus a privilege. He's looking at it as they're kind of both the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We're going to disagree. But on some of the major points, we do agree. So there's a lot of common ground that we have. If we just look at the common ground, maybe we could come up with some realistic legislation. Rather than just feel good, let's ban that because it's scary and it actually doesn't affect anything. Let's really dig into it. Maybe this will spark some conversations, catch some somebody's attention somewhere where they might actually take it up. That has a little more power than what we have right now.
Yeah. That's what you want.
And then also, if you like the episode, please share it on your timelines on Facebook. Share it in any way that you can because we're trying to gain viewership here. Not for monetary reasons. We just want more people engaged in this conversation. That's really what it's all about. Hopefully we can change the world, but we're just starting out. So we need everybody's help to join in on that, and you can be part of that change too.
Outstanding. Until next time.
We'll see y'all later.
Yes. Peace.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, man. I'm just here chilling with my man K-Dog.